Hello, everybody, and hello and welcome to our spring update, our April webinar. And it's really great to have so many of you joining us here. I can tell that there's a few folks already on the YouTube link, which is great, and the rest on Zoom. So thank you for being with us. We have, as ever, a nice program for you today with some new stuff as well. So that's great. And before I go any further, let me just run through that. I'm going to give a few housekeeping tips as ever for those who aren't familiar with them. But also, I want to do a quick introduction to our guest today. Our guest interview is with Dr. Stanley Yarnell, who is the founder of the museum accessibility group called the Blind Posse. Now, Stanley has been working with our colleague Bagia, on seeing what we can do to make museums in the US more accessible. And we're working with partners similarly in the Netherlands and other parts of the world. So we're going to be looking at that whole accessibility and art story today. And I'm super excited to hear what Stanley and Bagia will be bringing to the table. And also we'll be giving you something exciting which Ally can do for the museums as well. And that's going to be in our Under the Hood section, which is live demos today from both what we're doing in the museum space, but also a beta on scan text on Ally. This is super exciting. You know, OCR scan text is notoriously difficult to do in many ways, and we've nailed it up until now with the products we have. So bringing scan text to Ally was really, really important. So that is actually going to be today with Kartik Van Haven, our CEO, and he's going to be running Under the Hood with B. And then we'll have questions and answers as ever. So hope you've got your questions ready to share them with us. Let me just do the housekeeping bit. As we are recording this, it's streaming live on YouTube, and the Envision channel. If you miss bits, have to step out, whatever, please go back and have a read and listen and watch. And obviously we have all our archive there as well. We'll also do our best to answer as many of the questions as we can in the end part of the webinar. We try and make as much time for that as possible. If we can't get to your questions, please, if they're important to you, please send us those questions at our customer support email, support@letsenvision.com. We'll do our best to answer them in the webinar as well. So as the webinar works, Kartik gets to a point where he will look at the raised hands in the Zoom call. And if he invites you to speak, then please unmute yourself. The keystroke to do that on Windows is Alt+A. And if you're using a Mac, it's Command+Shift+A. I'm sure you all know those shortcuts, but that's really handy to have if you're wanting to talk live on the webinar and you've raised your hand to do that. You can also put your questions in the Q&A window, and I'll be doing my best to answer as many of those ones as I can, during the Q&A session when I can. And if I can't, then we'll also try and answer them as well. We already talked about the raised hand function, and to activate that again on Mac is Option+Y. And on Windows, Alt+Y. So that's actually to raise your hand to answer a question live or ask a question live. You may be able to answer some of them as well, which would be really nice for us. On YouTube, it's a lot simpler. Simply put your question in the chat function. I'll be monitoring that, and I'll pop that in our group so that we can try and answer as many of those as well as we can. So let me pass over now to Bagia and Dr. Yarnell to have the conversation that we're all waiting for. So thank you, gentlemen, and welcome.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hi, everyone. It's super nice to be here. I know I'm not a regular on the Envision webinar, so let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Bhagia, but everybody calls me B. My role at Envision is focused on partnerships, which also happens to be where we have been kind of discussing with museums, not just here in the Netherlands, but also in the United States. And actually, our guest today, Dr. Stanley Yarnell, has been kind of an advisor for us on that front over the past few months. But yeah, Dr. Yarnell is a retired physician who specialized in physical medicine and rehabilitation, but we know him better as the founder of the Blind Posse, which is a informal group of enthusiasts and people passionate about art that have been working with museums in the Bay Area in helping improve accessibility and just the way museums interact with blind and low vision people. But to kind of hear it from himself, Stanley, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the webinar.
Thank you.
So Stanley, I know this is a bit of a change for you in terms of joining for an online webinar. I would love for you to kind of give us a quick intro to yourself and also how the Blind Posse came to be.
Okay. Well, thank you for allowing me to participate today. And if you can do this for me, tell me just how many people who are tuned in today are vision impaired, blind or visually impaired, and how many are industry people?
Oof. That is a good question. I don't think I can give you that answer off the top of my head, Stanley, because I do see that we are joined now by about 50 participants. I would say that it is a mix of the two. I would say it's predominantly our blind and low vision user base who joins us regularly for these webinars, but we also do hope that there are a few people from the industry joining us as well. But I think we can make the assumption that it's predominantly our blind and low vision community.
Okay, good. Well, let me begin by saying that I have had that whole experience that many of the audience then has had, where I was normally fully sighted until I was 20 years old, and then I had an attack of optic neuritis. And it took a chunk of my peripheral vision. And about every other year, I would have another episode of optic neuritis. It's sort of akin to multiple sclerosis. I'm a retired doctor, so I have to use all these terms. I can't help myself. At any rate, so I was partially sighted to one degree or another for the next 30 years. And then just before I turned 50, I lost my vision altogether back in 1998. And if you're all doing the math, I'm coming up on 77 years old. So I've been without vision at all longer than almost as long as I was partially sighted and longer than I had full sight. And I always was interested in art. And as a kid, I was a drawer and encouraged by my teachers and parents and that sort of thing. And I really loved going to museums, and I did that. And even when I was partially sighted back then in the 80s, it was when there were mobile devices that would have audio guided tours. They weren't described, they were just audio guided tours. And I took advantage of those, to get the background, the history, the context, and it would help. And then my partner was able to fill in gaps for me. And then when I lost my vision altogether, nobody was more surprised than me that I continued to enjoy going to art museums in particular. And my partner, though, was put into the position of having to really describe things that I was really keenly interested to know more about from the, that guided tour, so the audio guided tour. So then it's probably 18 years ago, I encountered my first audio description, meaning a description of the art that is accessible by either the museum's mobile device or, well, that was it back then, now by apps or QR codes. And the description, when I heard it for the first time at a small regional museum in Cincinnati, Ohio, called the Taft Museum, for me, I could independently conjure a really good image based on a quality audio description that was, for me, it was transformative. I mean, it was great, and I could talk about it and ask, further questions, but images are fixed in my mind based on that. So that's historic. You all have had the experience of going to museums and hearing descriptions that I'm sure are the same. And for my partner, it was liberating. He didn't have to create audio descriptions on the spot or a description. So at any rate, I would ask every time, 18 years on, whether there was an audio description. And nothing. And I love to drop names like, London and Amsterdam and Tokyo and Kyoto and places we've been. We love to travel and we always go to the museums. Nobody had descriptions, audio descriptions, until about, I don't know, it must have been 12 years ago, and that was in London, and I think it was the National Museum, but oddly enough at St. Paul's Cathedral, and because of all the mosaics that had been uncovered under the years of soot and black and everything else, when I could see when I went there, I didn't even know they had mosaics. At any rate, then still nothing in the United States until about 11 years ago. And that's when we were in New York at the Museum of Modern Art, and those descriptions were wonderful. Some of them went on, but I was able to conjure images of certain things that I'd seen before that I really hadn't thought about since I hadn't been able to see them, and they were terrific. And then again at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, but they weren't as good, truthfully. But I came back and I was talking to a family friend who's involved in the disability movement. Her name is Emily Badix. And I was enthusing on about how wonderful the descriptions were in terms of accessing the art. And I, by then, also had opportunities to touch art in European museums. In the United States, it was almost like a fetish not to touch anything. And I was going, but I was complaining about there was nothing in California, nothing here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And basically she said to me, stop whining and get off your big fat ass and do something about it. Why don't you? And so I thought, okay, well, we should. So that was the beginnings of, it took us a while to get started, to get contact with the museums, but eventually starting in 2015, we did. And we've continued to make contact with various museums over the years. And Bhagya, if I can I talk about the Blind Posse now?
Yes, of course. I was actually just about to jump in and kind of ask you a little bit about that process, right? Because I think you put together this informal group of kind of people that you met. If I also understand correctly, you had a stint following your retirement as a doctor where you led some nonprofits in the blind and low vision space. I'm sure that contributed towards forming a few more members of this posse, so to speak. But I'm curious, like, what was that process like? And what were the challenges that you faced in this initial outreach period? Just kind of give us the rundown of how that evolved over the years.
Yeah. Getting back to while I was still practicing medicine, physical medicine and rehabilitation, because of the nature of the specialty, I dealt with a lot of people with spinal cord injuries and their rehabilitation, and polio survivors who were starting to get into problems with the late effects of polio. Initially, about the mid 80s, I started to identify myself as a disabled person, and I learned a lot from my patients. And many of my patients were movers and shakers in the United States in the disability movement back in the 70s. People like Judy Heumann, a polio survivor, and Ed Roberts. They were part of the World Institute on Disability, and Rena Schneider and Mary Lou Breslin, who was executive director of the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund in Berkeley. So, and I was encouraged to be on boards and of these nonprofit organizations. So I learned a lot from my patients and from my experience being on the boards of these organizations. And so when I was challenged to do something about it, instead of just whining, for those of you who, again, I don't know my audience here, but some of you may already be involved, but since I felt like we were starting from scratch, we have the Lighthouse for the Blind, and it wasn't really one of their priorities. Their priorities were more about employment and that sort of thing, really some basic stuff. And so it was starting a little bit from scratch, but I got together with Anita Aaron, who was the past president or director of the Lighthouse for the Blind. And I started picking people who were interested in art. And this whole thing is a labor of love. And there were just really only 3 of us to begin with. And that's when I realized that we needed a backup. And I said, when I thought about backup, when they were talking about doing beta testing at SF MoMA on some audio description, I thought, well, backup. That's what we should call ourselves. And so I thought we could either be a backup group like the Supremes with Diana Ross, or we could be a posse. And that's what we are, because we're from California and we're out here in the West. So we basically, based on our own experiences, which were back then limited, and in terms of audio description and then the occasional opportunity for a haptic experience, that's how we proceeded. And as I said, to move fast, we decided to keep the focus narrow, just on access in museums for blind and visually impaired people. And we kept it narrow at the beginning just to be art museums, really. And that's what we came up with. It was the Blind Posse is a informal social network of like-minded individuals who are committed to improving access to the art in the art museums of the San Francisco Bay Area for blind and visually impaired people. And it really is a very grassroots organization. It's not a not-for-profit or a 501c3. It was a deliberate decision because so many nonprofits spend so much of their time fundraising, grant writing, and all of that sort of thing. And I thought that we could, all these people that were with me were passionate and we could move faster. So we proceeded, and we basically have come to help the museums in 4 ways. One is advocacy of our 6 basic access objectives. Second is promotion of accessible art events when they're implemented. And third is educational events whenever we can participate. And fourth is collaboration with the museum. So, is it okay if I go on to just let me name the 6 access objectives?
You're literally one step ahead of me here. I was just about to kind of ask you to describe those 6 basic access objectives that you mentioned, because I think that's kind of a core pillar of the role that the Blind Posse plays in the advisory role that you all play.
Yeah, it really is. This is based on our own experiences, but then originally we had like 10 PowerPoints that we had. But after getting a lot of feedback, once museums that we work with started to do things, we would get feedback from members of the Blind Posse. And the Blind Posse distribution list is probably 260 people, and about 80 of them are vision impaired. A lot of people are just interested, or they're the friends who are sighted. They're the friends of BVI museum visitors. So we get feedback from them, and we've incorporated that. So, and underlying all of these, each of the 6 is the following, and that is that blind and vision impaired visitors want to visit the museum in their own time, on their own schedule, just like everybody else. And we don't want to have to go at a fixed time, like for special days for special people. That was really important for us. And it underscores each of the 6. The first one is primary and foremost is that the museums create audio descriptions of selected pieces in their permanent collections if they have them, or in selected pieces in their temporary exhibits that can be accessed by some form of technology, either mobile device, an app, or a QR code, and they can be used as for the docents who are going to be giving highly descriptive docent tours. And a quality description, we can talk about that a little bit more later, but that is really the key, so that we can go anytime we want and access selected pieces. And that doesn't have to be everything, of course, because it takes a lot of concentration to turn words into a mental image. And most of us are good for 4 to 8 pieces of art in a visit. That's it. It takes about an hour and 15 minutes, depending on the complexity. And by then, I'm ready for a drink. So this number 2, if these were bullet points, this would be the second bullet point. It's to increase opportunities for haptic experiences with 3-dimensional art. Mm-hmm. By that, I mean tactile experiences, and or with computer printed 3D replicas of 3-dimensional art that's deemed too delicate to touch. And for me, I think, and for most people, we want to have a little, either, from a docent or from an audio guide, orientation of where to place our hands. I don't want to have to guess at what it is and play a guessing game with somebody. I want to be told, put your hands at the top and this is a head and blah, blah, blah. It's facing you right now and whatever, just to get me oriented. Then I can go back and look at details. And I think it's the tactile experiences are really important, because some people aren't as good at turning words into visual images as well, they aren't. They're just what they're really good at. Their strong suit is their spatial perceptual skills, their ability to determine space with their hands, or using their ears to gauge how big a room is, or that sort of thing. So haptic experiences to access the art. And the third bullet point about accessing the art, not the building, the art, is being able to, having a policy to allow people to get up close, to go past the black friction tape, you know, the thing that says do not go any further, so that they can take advantage of what residual vision they have for partially sighted people. So they can get up and, you know, clarify colors that may be made of multiple small splotches of color to give an impression, and to clarify brush stroke and other small details that they really need to get close. And the policy needs to be something that alerts the security guards not to come and confront somebody. So those first three things are about accessing the art. And the next three things I'm going to talk about are about the museum. The fourth bullet point is ensuring that the websites are accessible to our preferred technology tools like screen reading software or digital magnifiers and so on. And to make sure that access of accommodations are easy to find and not buried under visitor experience at the bottom of 60 links, because we have to go through each one of them to get to it. I give up after 15. The next bullet point is large print signage or large print labels in the galleries and large print signage in the museums, and also wayfinding, and the wayfinding with traditional Braille maps, tactile maps, and also incorporating audio directions into an audio tour to, after you finish up a particular piece that's described, to get to the next piece in this gallery.
Contextually kind of describing which way to travel.
Which way to turn and all of that. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And other technologies like, like Ally, or there's IRA, or that Be My Eyes. And I will mention that from feedback that we got as recently as just back in December, this is something that I hadn't thought about since I don't see anything. But one of the big complaints about using technology or even large print labels is that partially sighted people and fully sighted people couldn't read it frequently because the light was so low in the galleries and in the museum. So lighting is something that I think needs to be given more attention as well. And now let me move on. And it was true for using, using apps to read the labels. They can't do it either with when the light's too low. And finally, it's training the front end staff and the security guards in basic disability courtesy training and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think between those 6 points, you kind of do provide like a holistic framework for these venues in terms of just like it is meant to be the basic access objectives, right? Like these are not the most complex things that you would like, you're asking these locations to go above and beyond. These are what you consider to be the basic necessities. And I think we, of course, couldn't agree more on that front. Stanley, I am a bit conscious of time because we are actually already 30 minutes in, which is wonderful because like I've really enjoyed like just listening to the story and understanding where you got to it. Before we kind of wrap up this particular interview section of the webinar and go over to the live demonstration side of things, I want you to kind of close on one last question, which is what is like in terms of your experience and in terms of the advice that you provide, what makes a good audio description for, let's say, a painting, right? Like, of course, it depends on the type of art, the medium and such. But let's say for a painting, what is kind of your ideal structure for an audio description?
Yeah, excuse me. one of the things that we've done as part of our collaborations with museums and education is, excuse me, is to develop it's called the Blind Posse Study Guide for creating audio descriptions, or live, highly descriptive docent-led tours. And you can maybe make that available to anybody who wants to look at it. It's free. It's out there for everybody. And but highlights, I think, from my point of view, in this 2-page thing. It's not meant to be an algorithm, or it's not meant to be a how-to exactly. It's how to get started, which I think people who in museums who are used to looking at art and giving tours, they just need some guideposts, and that's what this is. And the first thing is, here in America, we want things in inches and feet, because I mean, as a doctor, I did all of my calculating in centimeters and milliseconds and millimeters and that sort of thing. But I think in my day-to-day life in inches and feet. I don't use centimeters. So bear that in mind if you have an American audience. But and also give us the orientation that it is, like either a portrait orientation if it's a rectangle, or if it's a landscape orientation. It's wider than it is tall. And the other things that sighted describers frequently forget, or they just take for granted, that is so helpful to have a quality description is, first of all, is give us the perspective of what we're looking at. If it's representational, are we looking down at it? Are we looking off? Tell us where, for example, if it's a landscape, where is the horizon line from the bottom of the painting, or from the top if it's closer to the top? And tell us you're at a height looking down at something, or that you're in fact at the bottom of the stage looking up, whatever it happens to be. And give us the perspective on things. If it's in a room, or if the perspective is not traditional, like in a Matisse or something, tell us it's out of whack, and tell us how it's out of whack, why it doesn't look traditional, because there is no focal point, or it looks like the floor is slanting up toward the back of the room, as it does in some. The second thing is light. Tell us where the source of light is. Is it coming in from the right, casting shadows on the left side of the the figures? So or is it from the other side, or is it coming in from over the viewer's shoulder, so you don't get those kinds of light? Or so it gives us the sense of dimension and depth to increase our quality, so it isn't just like a flat poster or looking like a coloring book. Right. And finally, color. Describing color not as red, green, blue, but in shades that people who grew up without vision, or at least without color, who may have a sense of movement, but black and white, that sort of thing. Not black and white, but you know what I mean. And the colors in terms of those that appear in nature or food, because we are a visual culture, and every kid growing up knows that the sky is blue, or that morning glories are blue, or that blueberries have a different shade of blue. And it might not be your notion of blue, or what I can remember as a particular notion of blueberry blue, but we have associations with it that puts it in perspective. And just a simple example there, a docent who was giving a tour was describing a piece of, it was either Chinese or Indian art. I think it was Indian art. And there were 3 deities. And the central deity they were shirtless deities. They had on those, skirt-like things, seated. And the description of the skin color the central deity was the color of vanilla ice cream.
Oof.
I love that. And the deity to the right was, one with blue skin, you know which one that is. And it was described as skin color was blueberry blue, and the other one to the left had skin color that was copper colored. And those things enliven as opposed to something less like, I hate it when somebody says the skin color is pale. I think sometimes they're trying to be politically correct and not saying it's darker. We want to know, is it is it ivory colored? Is it peach colored? What color is it? Be specific, and we can judge it. Or is it mahogany or something like that? So color, perspective, source of light, orientation, those simple things can turn something from being a coloring book into a really vivid piece of art. And that can be done with abstract art as well, or expressionist art.
Amazing. Stanley, thank you so much. I think you've already kind of shared a wealth of information with us and like just knowledge, because before we invited Stanley on for the webinar, Stanley asked me as well, like, who is the audience? And I said, like, and what do you think their knowledge of the arts is? And I would say, like, I mean, I consider myself an average museum goer or an average art enthusiast, but I think everybody can understand and appreciate the type of description that you just kind of went over, Stanley. So what we've tried to do, we spoke with Stanley, we kind of showed him an initial version of Ally's ability to describe art, and then Stanley was very quick to give us kind of immediate feedback on exactly these points that you just mentioned. And what we've done now, and what we'll demo in just a little bit, is a version of Ally that we've structured around this same framework that you described, in kind of asking Ally to be descriptive about these elements. But I'm gonna kind of pause our conversation here and pass it on to Karthik to kind of lead us towards the next section. Stanley, thank you so much for your input and sharing your story with us. It's highly appreciated. I can already see there's some questions on art, particularly one that I am interested in exploring. But once we get to the Q&A, we'll come back to that as well. So yeah, Karthik, over to you.
Awesome. That was a great conversation. I think it's been fascinating to sort of understand the whole world of art from this perspective, and that's something that we've been exploring a lot as well. Before we jump into into sort of like a demo, I have two quick slides to show you to talk about some of the upcoming events that you can look out for from Envision. One is it's a meetup that we that you can do with us in person if you are in Europe, that is. So there is an event in Frankfurt, Germany, called Site City. Our team will be there from the 21st to the 22nd of May. So if any of you are going to be attending Site City, do reach out to us. We would love to catch up. We are also there supporting our authorized distributors, which is IPD and Reinecke. So if you are somebody who wants to get a demo of Envision glasses, at Site City, definitely come and you'll find our team. Envision team is also going to be present at Site Village. This is an event that's happening in Glasgow, Scotland. So if any of you happen to be in Scotland on the 21st of May, do definitely come by your Site Village. We will be there along with our distributors, Sight and Sound. So look forward to talking to you about all the cool things we've been working on under the hood when we see you there in person. And finally, a sneak peek into the next month's webinar. We'll be speaking with like Bethany Small, who is from the Vista Center, in the heart of the Silicon Valley. We've been working a lot with like a Vista Center for the blind and visually impaired, and we've been doing a demo days with them. We've been organizing events with them, and they've been a great partner for us in so many different aspects. So very excited to have your Bethany Small, who is the program officer at the Vista Center, join us for the webinar that will be happening on the 27th of May. So this time it's happening on a Tuesday instead of a Thursday, because it's a public holiday here in like Netherlands on the Thursday. So on the 27th of May, we would look to have another chat with you as well. And with that, let's get to the exciting a part of doing your demos live. We have your two sort of like demos to show you. The first one will be shown to you by Bhagya, who there is a demo we have built of how Ally could be used in a museum. So he's going to give you a walkthrough of that, and then I'll come back and I will do a demo of the new scan text feature within Ally. So let me hand it back to Bhagya for the demo.
Thanks, Karthik. I think we just had the super enlightening section with Dr. Yanel, and what we've done then is actually take that input to turn it into a version of Ally or an Ally persona that can basically take that input and use it when it describes different types of art. In fact, we've been working with museums here in the Netherlands as well as museums in the United States. And these are early stage discussions that we're having around kind of how we can implement Ally as a tool for providing information not just about the art and the exhibits, but like Dr. Yanel mentioned, also to provide information about a given space, right? The actual layout, understanding where different pieces of art might be, as well as having easy access to amenities within a given museum. Now, you guys are here for the demo, so I've actually focused this demo towards actually the describing art side of things. So what I've done is I've created an Ally and I've tweaked the personality and the communication style of this Ally to use the framework that Dr. Stanley mentioned. And in essence, what I've done is I've also tweaked it a little bit towards my personal preferences as well. So in terms of the level of descriptions and such. And what I also want to be kind of doing within this demo is to be able to ask follow-up questions. Now, if anyone's been to a museum where you've had to use one of the standard audio tours or the audio description devices they give you, it's a very static experience. And what we want to do here with Ally is to take that and elevate it to something that is more conversational and more dynamic. So actually what I have in front of me is a pretty sizable rendition or recreation of the girl with the pearl earring painting. Let me just bring it into frame really quickly. It's like half the size of me. I'm just holding it up in front of the screen now. This is a painting that we've had at the office for some time, so it is finally coming into the webinar itself. So what I'll be doing is I'm going to be now starting up Ally and basically asking my Ally Leah to kind of describe this piece of art, and let's see what it's able to tell me. And of course, live demos are always interesting in this sense. So let's see how Leah performs here. So I'm just going to go ahead and start her up now.
I'm ready.
Hey, Leah. I have a piece of art in front of me. Could you have a look and describe it to me?
Let me take a look. This piece appears to be a modern interpretation of Johannes Vermeer's famous painting, Girl with a Pearl Earring. The background is a deep black, which provides a striking contrast to the bright colors of the subject. The headscarf is a vivid blue, wrapping around and draping elegantly down, paired with a long gold-toned section at the top of the scarf. The pearl earring, a significant detail in the original painting, adds a touch of elegance, capturing light with its smooth surface. The canvas itself seems to be approximately the size of a small poster, a bit larger than an A4 sheet, and displayed on a table against the wall. The play of light and dark, along with the simplicity of the composition, draws the eyes directly to the intricate textiles and accessories. Though this is a reproduction, it captures the essence of the original work, focusing on contrast and elegance. Do you have any thoughts or questions about this piece?
Yeah, that's great, actually. I'm very curious because we know that Vermeer is a very popular artist, but could you describe the kind of the historical relevance of this painting in his career?
Certainly. Girl with a Pearl Earring is often celebrated as one of Vermeer's masterpieces and has even been termed the Mona Lisa of the North. Created around 1665, this work is representative of Dutch Baroque art and reflects Vermeer's skillful use of light and exquisite attention to detail. Vermeer was known for his meticulous technique and masterful use of light, creating an intimate atmosphere in his works. At the time, genre paintings and portraits like this were popular in the Netherlands. The painting doesn't depict a specific person, but rather is considered a tronie, a study of a character or a type. What's particularly intriguing is how the girl with the pearl earring moved away from grand historical or biblical narratives that were prevalent in art. Instead, Vermeer captured a simple, timeless beauty with an air of mystery. The painting's historical relevance is heightened by its short period of obscurity after Vermeer's death, as he wasn't very popular in his lifetime and only later gained recognition as one of the great masters. In the 20th century...
Thanks so much, Leah. I'm going to stop you there just so that we are able to carry on. But yeah, that basically is a very quick demonstration of like what Ally can do with the proper input. And in this case, that input came, of course, through our sessions with the Blind Posse and following their framework. Of course, this is still a work in progress. We look to improve this. Each museum, of course, will have their own preference in the style at which they prefer to have the descriptions. But ultimately, the choice will be other users as well. This is a bit descriptive. You can shorten it, have it a bit more concise and to the point. But what we'll also be doing is once we've streamlined this a little bit more, we'll hopefully be able to have Leah or this version of Ally for Museums available to all of our users as a pre-delivered or pre-recorded Ally. So yeah, that's it from me. I'm going to pass it back to Karthik to do the demo of Scantext.
Awesome. Yeah, Bhagi, thanks a lot. And yeah, like it's incredible the kind of like a richness that we're able to build with something like Ally. And like Bhagi said, this is just the first version, and it will of course undergo a lot of iterative development. But it offers all the museums across the world with a pretty like an intuitive way to make their your artwork and exhibits a lot more accessible. So we are at the moment engaging with a lot of them to discuss a pilot where we can capture all the artwork and and actually have Ally describe them in as a vivid way as possible. So hopefully we'll have some announcements to make on that. But if you are aware of a museum, or if you know somebody who works at a museum, where you think Ally would be a great fit, definitely reach out to us and you make the introductions. I'd love to talk to them and and I show them exactly how Ally could potentially help here. So if you are somebody who knows a museum, you can send us your email at support@letsenvision.com, and we'll be happy to take it further. So now let's move on to the other element of Ally that we've been working on. It's still a beta, so it's not even a beta; it's an alpha. It's about to go into a beta. But one of the things that we've been working on with Ally is really improving its capability to read text. Right? If you are, if you have been in the AI space for a bit, you would have realized that one of the big challenges with any of these new large language models, it can be it can be like ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these models that are out there. The one thing that they really struggle with is reading text. There's a lot of hallucination. It'll just imagine text that's not there. It'll just make up the context on its own, and that is a common problem that a lot of our users have been facing when you're having to use any of these LLMs. So at Ally, what we have done is we have built this in such a way where you can simply now ask Ally to scan a document, and when you do that, what Ally will do is, instead of just taking an image and having an LLM give you the information from it, it actually will go ahead and do an OCR, which is an optical character recognition, and then it will run that image through some of the proprietary tools we have built to detect a layout of the document, to look for your headings, look for your tables, look for images, and then it will sort of put the output out to you in a way that's so that it's easy to read. Let me sort of show you a demo of how this would work. I'm gonna just start up my Ally, and I have with me a handwritten piece of note, which is right here, and I'm gonna ask my Ally to speak it out to me.
Hello.
Hey Leah, can you go ahead and scan this document for me?
I'm Leah. Just point the document my way, and I'll scan it for you right now. Page facing up.
Yep. Can you scan this document?
Okay, preparing to scan. Please point your camera and hold steady. Okay, I have the image. Analyzing it now. Please wait a moment. Okay, I've scanned it. Here's what I could read. Hello to the listeners of the Envision Montilli webinar. Please enjoy this painting I made of where I will be going next month. Visual element detected. Alt text for the visual element is as following. A simple black and white drawing featuring a house on a hill, a winding path, mountains, and a sun. The scene is bordered and provides a simplistic representation of a rural landscape. End of visual element description.
So as you could see, like a few things. So like first off, this is handwritten note. So this is something that I just wrote in the beginning of the webinar, and like Ally was able to go ahead and capture exactly what the your text said very well. So, and that is sort of like a proof that it's actually doing OCR, or it's actually you're recognizing the text, because if this was just any other LLM, especially with a handwritten piece of text, it would hallucinate a lot. But it actually did a very accurate job of reading this handwritten piece of text. And admittedly, I would say that my handwriting is not the best, but it still does a great job at recognizing the handwritten part. And the other thing, if you would have noticed, is that at the end of the text, I drew a sketch of like mountains and rivers and a hut, because I will be going hiking in the mountains in Germany next month. So I just drew like a shabby sketch of it. which also your ally was able to recognize, and sort of it was able to offer you like an alt text of this, right? So that's basically how it works. It sort of handles any kind of your documents very, very well. The documents could have a table, it could have a figure, it could have a pie chart, it could have a graph, and it will be able to understand all of that information and speak it out to you in a clearly structured way. And you have the option to either like listen to a whole your document from your top to bottom, or because it's ally, you can also do it in a conversational way where you can simply ask it a question of the document. So you can simply ask it a question if you're interested in something specific. So if you're holding a menu, you can simply ask for how much is the cappuccino, or what are the options for like a vegan here. Or if you're holding an invoice, you can simply ask how much is the amount I need to pay, right? And this is a very, very like a reliable way for people to access any kind of text-based information in the environment. And this will be coming out as a beta on Ally pretty soon. And then once we have been able to stabilize and test it with the beta testers, we will be launching it to production hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So that's what's cooking under the hood at Ally, or let me say that's what I'm allowed to show you cooking under the hood at Ally. There's a lot more exciting stuff that's happening that I'm not allowed to talk about just yet, but stay tuned and you will hear a lot more exciting updates coming from the labs of Envision. And with that, I know this webinar session went way longer than it was supposed to, but we will make some time for the Q&A. So without any further ado, I would sort of want to jump right into it. I'll do my best to answer as many of the questions as possible, but if I'm not able to get to the question that you have today, please reach out to us through our emails and social channels. Let me start off with the first your question, which is from Christelle Hayer, who's asking, is it more difficult to properly describe comic style painting? So this is a question for Dr. Stanley. There is someone who's asking, is it more difficult to properly describe the comic style like paintings? Is that something that you've experienced, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Good question. And you're talking about a cartoon kind of thing, right? By comics, that's what you mean?
I think so.
Yeah, I would assume so as well. So like the panel-based.
Right. Well, I think that there are one of the, I mentioned Emily Badix, and she's been working with some other folks, I think at MIT, but how to describe and make comics accessible for BBI viewers. And I can get that information to you. I've just done a couple, and I think there are different ways of doing it. It's like there are the cartoon, if there are serial cartoons, that kind of thing, if they could be described at the beginning, from my point of view, in some detail, like as in the old-fashioned cast of players or cast of characters that used to be in old movies from the 1920s, and they show a picture and it says Norma Shear or something, to describe what's been drawn, so that you've got a picture in your head, and then the next character, next character, next character. And then they can be described within the framework of the, with the captions, but what movement they're in, what position, or what the facial features are doing, without having to go into too much detail about, because they're always wearing the same thing and business, and they have the same colors. Anyway, I think that there are other people are working on that, but as I said, I've been pretty focused on the art museums.
But yeah, just to jump in there, I think that's an interesting one for us to explore on our end as well. maybe we'll do some testing on our side with some comics, because it's exactly like Stanley just mentioned, which is, I think once you've got the character descriptions established, then it becomes about describing what happens in each panel and having the ability to understand the flow of the panel. So are you going from like left to right in rows of panels? But I do think it's probably a little bit more challenging than just a fixed piece of art, because you are kind of collating multiple different smaller pieces of art into one storyline. But definitely, Crystal, something that I personally would like to explore now that you've kind of put that in my head.
Cool. Let me start bringing some people onto the panel. I see a lot of raised hands. Let me first start with a Jimmy. Jimmy, you could unmute yourself and ask us your question.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Perfect. So, a couple things. When will we be able to share our glasses allies that we've created with our glasses and like be able to link all that up together?
Very soon. We already do have a beta of that out, this week. So yeah, like it's so all the development for that is done. We're just you're testing for some stability. So I would say sometime within the next 2 weeks, that is something we'll be pushing to production. So you will be able to sync your Ally app with your glasses, and then all the allies that you have on your phone will also be available to you on your glasses.
Now, have we as beta tester gotten that yet, or is that coming this week?
It's coming this week with all the stuff that we'll push out. So stay tuned for it.
Okay. Now, is the scan text what you just demoed? Will that be for us this week too, or will we get that later on down the line as well?
Yeah, so you will get both the scan text and the ability to connect glasses with your app. Both are coming out this week to beta.
Perfect. Okay. That was my thing. That was all I had. I appreciate you guys. You guys have been great.
Thanks.
We'll see you next
Have a
week.
good day. Appreciate that. Thank you. The next person is Margaret. Margaret, you can unmute yourself and ask us a question.
Audio now unmuted. Webinar unmuted.
Do you hear me?
Yes, Margaret, how are you doing?
Thank you. I have when I'm scanning text, and I am a beta tester. Say for example, I'm right around now. It's been tax time and everything, and so you get a lot of things with bank information and things you have to pull off of items you get, say, in the mail. When I try to read them, a lot of times I'll get that the table will consist of the following items consisting of things like, and it'll give me an idea of what some of the things are on the table.
Mhm.
What's the best way to get something like that fully read? Because I don't necessarily know what all the columns are and what all the fields on the tables are. So to ask it what I really need, because I don't know necessarily everything that's there.
Yeah. So, so the way it works is, so if you have something like a table or a graph or any sort of a visual element that's in there, so basically, by a default, what we do is we give you just a summary of exactly what's in there. If you do want to read the whole thing, you should turn off smart detection. You can do it either on scan text on your glasses or on the app. You should turn off a smart detection. And when you turn it off, then it will not sort of do this summarization. Then it will just read everything top to bottom. So that's the way, if you really want to, like read all the content that's inside of a table, then you should turn off a smart detection and then read it.
All right, if you turn off the smart detection, does that still go up on the internet and give you the better scan?
Yeah, it will still do it online, but it will mainly focus on reading the text part. It will like not your focus just so much on like the images and the graphs and things like that.
Okay, and then Can you also do that by voice?
On the glasses,
Then
no.
turn off smart detection or no?
No, as of now, no. So as of now, you have to
Okay.
sort of do it on the glasses. You need to do a single tap on scan text, and then that opens up the context your menu,
Got
and
it.
then
No, I know that's in there. Thank you.
yeah. Thanks,
I
Father.
think that is all I had. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that, and have a good day. Then I'm gonna bring on Ryan. Ryan, you can unmute yourself and ask us a question.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
I got a question first for the Dr. Stanley. What I was going to ask him is, are there any UK museums that currently work with Ally?
So we don't have any museums working with Ally already. We are in talks with a few to start a pilot, and that's mainly in US and the Netherlands. UK
Okay.
is interesting, but yeah, hopefully soon.
Okay, gotcha. And another question is for yourself. Is the Ally actually on the glasses now, or is it just a beta?
So Ally is on the glasses now, so you can already talk to the Ally, and you do get the full functionality of it. What you don't get is sort of like the only thing that's missing as of now is the personalization bit,
I
and that
gotcha.
will be coming as soon as you're able to sync your Ally on your app and the classes. You'll also be able to do all the
Yeah,
personalization bits as well.
I gotcha. Because I got all the functionality with it yesterday on the update, so I wasn't sure what was what because it's such a short time from the update being released to today. Like,
Yeah.
that's everything. Thanks.
All right, Ryan. Thank you so much. Then there is another Q&A from Claire Crystal, who says LLM, the first L is for a large or a learning. So LLM is a large like language or models. So in LLM, the first L is for large and a language and models. That's the abbreviation. And a language or model is basically what is a chat GPT or any of these AI your tools that you use today. Cool. And with that, we would want to sort of bring this webinar to a conclusion. Sorry, we didn't do as many of the Q&A stuff as we would have liked to, but we do appreciate all of you for taking the time, to come and hang out with us out here. I want to give a special thanks to Dr. Yarnal, who took out your time and jumped on this call for us, especially early in the morning for him. So definitely really appreciate that, and hopefully we'll be doing a lot of work in the future together, and all of you will be hearing about it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and with that, I would wish everybody a goodbye. Everybody in the Netherlands, I wish you happy King's Day. It's the birthday of the King of the Netherlands on the weekend, so enjoy yourself, but safely. But we shall see you all on another your webinar next month. Until then, take care. Goodbye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.